This is Beantown Fantasy Football. It's week 6. Things are starting to get interesting. The advice really matters at this point. This is the wide receiver edition. I'm with Mark Fury. I'm the Jaker. Let's get started. Week 6, wide receiver. Who should the fans have in their starting lineup?
You should definitely have Greg Jennings in your starting lineup against the Detroit Lions. He's been kind of inconsistent to start the season. He's been banged up a little bit. He even got shut out a couple weeks ago. But he's facing the Detroit Lions. They have a slow secondary. They don't get much pressure. And one of the biggest problems with Jennings has been that Rodgers has been under pressure and he hasn't been able to throw the ball down the field. I look for Jennings to be able to run his deep routes and Rodgers will have time to get him the ball. Look for a long touchdown from Jennings and a pretty solid all-around game. 80 yards and a score at least.
I like it. And obviously, you got to pick somebody else. Who else is starting for you in week 6?
Well, I'm going with TJ Hushmanzada from the Seattle Seahawks. He's facing a pretty weak Arizona Cardinals secondary this week. Matt Hasselbeck is back, and TJ is looking to finally get settled in Seattle. A couple weeks ago, he went over 100 yards for the first time. Last week, he had 2 touchdowns. I see Hushmanzada getting the ball a lot this week in the West Coast offense. It's his kind of offense, the little dink and dunk thing. He'll catch it 8 yards downfield and turn it into 15. Start him this week and start him for the rest of the year.
I like Hushmanzada in this one as well, and I'm going with Matt Hasselbeck also as quarterback. I think that's a great combination. Who do you not like going into week 6?
Well, I don't like Marcus Colston against the New York Giants. The Giants have one of the best defenses in the league, and they have Corey Webster, who's one of the most underrated players in the league and a true shutdown corner. He's going to be all over Colston all day, and he's going to make Breeze look elsewhere. The Giants are only allowing 104 yards through the air this year. That's just unbelievable.
Stifling.
Yeah. I mean, some people expect Colston to put up 104 yards by himself, and most weeks he probably can do that, especially with Drew Brees throwing to him, but he won't do it this week. You're going to be disappointed if you play Colston.
I agree.
Well, Jacob, that's who I'm starting and sitting. Who are you starting at receiver this week?
Well, I'm going to upset a lot of people in Cleveland, but you know what? I'm going to go with the former Cleveland Brown, Braylon Edwards, going up against the Buffalo Bills. Now let's start. Buffalo is allowing an average of 24 points a game. At least one of those scores is going to go to Braylon Edwards. He proved himself on Monday night against Miami. He definitely looks like he will be the go-to guy with Mark Sanchez. I look for him easy to have 60, 70 yards and a touchdown. Not out of the question to even see 100 yards out of this guy. Braylon Edwards has that breakaway speed. I think he was stifled in Cleveland. He just was not happy there. I think New York is going to be a much better setting for him. Braylon Edwards should definitely be in your starting lineup.
I agree 100%. I love Braylon Edwards this week. Jericho Cotchery is doubtful for this week's game, which makes Edwards the primary target of that offense. He can have a huge week. He looked like when he got traded from Cleveland on the way to New York, he stopped in Michigan and picked up his hands. He was finally catching the football again, and it was great to see from everybody who had faith in him.
Absolutely. I'm going to start wearing that Braylon Edwards jersey again.
All right, dust it off.
Okay, Braylon Edwards, not exactly a hard pick, but kind of think could be sneaky nonetheless. But a guy that I think is really going to pay dividends, especially in those deeper leagues. For those of you who are in a 12, 10, even 14 team league like Mark Fury and I here. And let's go with Mike Wallace of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not of 60 Minutes, but of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this guy could be in for a very big game. Hines Ward, sure, you can always count on him for a good game, but I think that the coverage on him is definitely going to be there this week. I don't know what's up with some of Pittsburgh's other receivers like Santonio Holmes not doing much for me. I definitely am going to go with Mike Wallace. He's had a touchdown in each of his last 2 games. I think he could really start to be gelling with Ben Roethlisberger. I like Mike Wallace. It would be a good flex play as well if you have that in your league.
That's a good sneaky pick right there. If you got him in a league like ours, the 14-team league you just mentioned, then he could make for a heck of a play. He's got some great wheels, and there's potential for him to go all the way every time he touches the ball. So why not take a shot if you're losing someone on a bye week?
Absolutely, and with, like you said, with the bye week especially, you know, somebody to plug in there. Mike Wallace not owned in a lot of league right now. He should be available. And the flip side of that, as I said before, I am sitting Santonio Holmes. I've had it. I've had this guy starting in my last 2 games. He hasn't found the end zone. He hasn't found more than 100 yards combined in his last 2 games. I have this sneaking suspicion there could be an injury there. Maybe not saying as much, maybe they're trying to play through it. But until Santonio Holmes looks like he's got the chemistry and looks like he's going to be targeted more often, I really think you need to sit him.
Yeah, I've never really been a huge Santonio Holmes fan anyway. He's a guy who was picked just because of his Super Bowl performance, but Super Bowl performances don't count in fantasy football. Look at Deion Branch a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. People were paying way too much for Holmes in their drafts. This is a guy who never had a 1,000-yard season, and suddenly he's going in the top 15 receivers. No, there's no reason for that, and he's showing his true colors. He's a good receiver. He's an average receiver. He's got potential, but it takes time. One game doesn't make your career.
Well, it can in fantasy football.
Sure it can. For a couple of years anyway. People still own Deion Branch for some odd reason.
All right, well, that's it. This has been Wide Receivers. It's Beantown Fantasy Football, Week 6. For Mark Fury, I'm the Jaker. Thanks for watching.